Creepy stories of terror.
Be sure to watch until the end. You won't believe what happens at the end. Don't watch alone. You've been warned.
Number 1. Internet sensation.
A 20-year-old girl was attending college in Oregon, her third year of school. She decided she wanted to improve her French, so she transferred to a university in France. She'd always wanted to live in Europe, but she didn't realize how difficult the change would be for her. The courses she was taking required her to submit a lot of reports and an endless amount of papers. While she was in school in the US, all her papers were in English. However, in the French university, all of the reports, of course, had to be in French. This caused a big problem for the girl because of her command of the French language was not very good, even after studying it for the last 2 years in school. She found that she had to spend hours upon hours checking the spelling and grammar while typing up her papers. Another problem was that she didn't own a laptop. Luckily, the university library had a computer lab with about 35 computers that was open 24 hours a day. Unfortunately, there were always a lot of people waiting to use them. Every morning she had to go to class, and every evening she had to wait for a computer. This all took its toll, and after a while, the girl became fed up with the daily grind. Late one night, after the girl had been sitting, hunched over a computer for hours, she began to get restless. It was almost 3 a.m., and she was extremely tired. It was getting hard for her to keep her eyes open. Leaning back in her chair, she yawned and stretched out her arms in front of her. Her hand just happened to nudge the computer keyboard a few inches. She was about to begin typing again when she happened to look down and noticed that there was something carved into the desk under the keyboard. It looked like a website URL. She thought it was strange that someone had taken the time to engrave a web address in the desk, and out of a combination of curiosity and extreme boredom, she decided to look it up. After typing the web address into the browser, she waited a few seconds for it to load and a page appeared on the screen. What she saw terrified her. There was a picture of a young man, covered in blood, lying on the floor of a dimly lit room. It looked so real that it turned her stomach and made her feel like throwing up. Looking closely, she saw a caption right below the image. It read, "Dumb guy, age about 25, killed by me today." A chill went down her spine as she stared at the gruesome picture. The girl immediately shut down her computer and, grabbing her backpack, she ran out of the computer lab. She returned to her dorm room and spent the rest of the night tossing and turning in bed. She just couldn't get the horrible photo she had seen out of her mind. Could it be real? She asked herself. It's probably just a hoax. People post crazy pictures on the internet all the time. The web is full of weird and disturbing websites, and most of them are fake. Try as she might, the girl couldn't shake the sneaking suspicion that she had stumbled across the website of a killer. Worst of all, he seemed to be bragging about his crime. The next morning, after breakfast, her curiosity got the better of her. She skipped her first class and headed straight for the computer lab. When she found a free computer, she sat down, typed in the URL, and held her breath. Maybe what she had seen last night was just her imagination. Was it a dream? When the website appeared, she saw that the image had changed. Instead of a dead body in a dimly lit room, the photo showed a young blonde woman walking down a busy street. The girl sighed a breath of relief. The picture appeared to have been taken from a distance, and the woman didn't seem to notice she was being photographed. The caption underneath read, "Stupid woman, around 20 years old." That evening, the girl went back to her dorm room and didn't speak to anyone. She was still freaked out and couldn't stop thinking about the strange website and what she saw. As soon as she woke up the next morning, she dressed and went back to the computer lab. There were only a few people around. She sat down at a free computer and typed in the website URL. To her horror, the image had changed again. It was the same dimly lit room, but this time a blonde woman lay on the floor. Blood was flowing from her nose and mouth. There was a large knife sticking out of her chest. Under the photo were the words, "Stupid woman, around 20 years old, killed by me today." The girl was horrified and immediately contacted the police. Over the phone, it was difficult for her to explain the situation. Her French was not very good, and she spent a long time repeating herself and trying to find the right words to describe what she had found online. At the end of the call, she wasn't even sure if the police had understood what she was trying to say. But they took her name, address, phone number, and the URL of the website. When she hung up the phone, the girl was shaking, but she couldn't seem to get the terrible pictures out of her mind, but she just had to take another look. That evening, she returned to the computer lab again, and with mixed feelings of terror and curiosity, she entered the URL of the website. When the page loaded, she discovered that the image that had been there just a couple hours before was gone. Instead, there was a picture of a girl taken from behind. She had short, black hair, a yellow t-shirt, and was sitting in front of a computer. The girl got a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, and she broke out into a cold sweat. She recognized the hair. She recognized the clothes. She was staring at a picture of herself that was taken that morning. Her name, address, and phone number were written under the picture, followed by a single sentence. "You're about to be an internet sensation." And she was never seen or heard from again.
Number 2. My twin.
Eventually, everyone experiences that terrible feeling of loss and grief when a loved one dies. The death of a parent is something everyone has to go through, and it feels awful, like a knife piercing straight through your heart. The death of a sister or brother is much worse, especially if it happens when you are young. The death of a child is even worse. Your life almost comes to a stop. It's completely unnatural. Parents are not meant to outlive their children. But there's one thing that is more painful than all the above. It's the death of an identical twin. When your identical twin passes away, it feels as if a part of you has died as well. My twin sister and I were always very close. People constantly got us confused. We were identical twins. Instead of being annoying, it was rather amusing and gave us the opportunity to get into all kinds of mischief. We could always have fun posing as each other and causing as much confusion as possible. Jen and Ren, Ren and Jen. Those were our names. At home, we shared the same bedroom and played the same games. At school, we were in all the same classes and hung out with the same group of friends. We were inseparable. After graduation, we went to the same college and we were roommates in the dorms. We even fell in love with the same guy, which was really strange, but he eventually chose her, not me. But he still managed to get me confused with my sister almost every other day, which always cracked us up. I never had much luck with men. She was the attractive one. Even though we looked exactly the same, she had a more attractive personality. She was the popular one. Everyone loved her. Soon after graduating from college, she got married, and the year after that, she had a baby, which made me an aunt. Now, my twin sister had 2 people who loved her. I had none. She always was the lucky one. They say that if one identical twin is in pain, the other twin can feel it, even if they are thousands of miles away. Don't believe it. This just isn't true. My sister never felt my pain. She never knew the turmoil that was eating me up from inside, the struggle I went through every single day. She was oblivious to all of it. As her life went from one success to another, my life was spiraling out of control. She was happy and I was depressed, and the happier she became, the more my depression grew until it was almost overwhelming. I never felt her pain either. It's weird to look at your own grave, the place where you know someday you will be laid to rest. It's even stranger to see yourself in a picture, laid on top of a gravestone with the dates of your birth and death engraved on it. Jen Stewart, born 3/25/1984, died 2/28/2015. Cherished daughter and dearest sister. Not a single word of it is true. It was after 3 a.m. when the phone started ringing. My husband rolled over in bed and mumbled. I composed myself and answered the phone. In a sleepy, slurred voice, I said, "Hello?" There was a man's voice on the other end of the phone. "Ren Stewart?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but I have some terrible news. Your sister Jen was found dead an hour ago. We need you to come down to the morgue and identify her body." Life comes to a halt. Time freezes. A part of you is now gone forever. That's what it means to be a twin. I didn't cry. I was still in a state of shock. I just could not squeeze out the tears. How did it happen? I asked. She was murdered, the officer said. Stabbed 8 times in the chest. We found her in an alley, just around the corner from the building where she worked. That's when the tears started flowing. I was crying so much I could barely tell my husband what happened. The next morning, I drove down to the morgue and identified my sister's body. It was her, of course. How could I not recognize her? We had the same arms, the same legs, the same body, the same face. It was like looking at myself, laid out on an icy, cold table. Totally naked with only a thin, white sheet to cover me. Afterwards, the police wanted to ask me a few questions. They had ruled out robbery as a motive. They said that whoever murdered her killed her for a reason. It looked like a crime of passion. Whoever it was wanted her dead. He stabbed her 8 times in the heart, and the only thing missing was her cell phone. So you say the last time you saw your sister was about a week ago? The detective asked. I nodded slowly. We haven't been on speaking terms lately, I said. She was upset with me, and she didn't want to speak to me. She was always angry with me. I just don't know why. So in the last week, you didn't talk to each other by phone? You didn't arrange to meet up at all? I shook my head, unable to get any words out. The detective had been more than a little surprised to learn that we were not only sisters, but also identical twins. He wondered if there was a chance the killer had gotten us confused and had accidentally killed the wrong twin by mistake. That would complicate the case even more. It meant there would be twice as many suspects to investigate. One crime, but now twice as difficult to solve. Do you know of anyone who would want to hurt you? He asked. No, I answered. Nobody. I don't have an enemy in the world. After leaving the police station, I got into my car and just sat there for a long while. There were no tears. I just wanted to laugh. I took out my cell phone and scrolled through the text messages. From Ren. Of course I can meet you today. How about after you get off work? Delete. From Ren. I'm outside your office. Where are you? Delete. She was buried in a grave with my name on it. Our names were the only things that ever distinguished us. Now, there's nothing to tell us apart. It's so funny.
So funny. So funny.
My husband is sleeping peacefully in a bed beside me, unaware that his wife is dead. It should be a very sad day, but it feels like the first day of the rest of my new life. Sorry, Ren. Sometimes sacrifices must be made in order to get the things that rightfully belong to you. You always had everything, and now it all belongs to me. But you know what they say? Even though twins are identical, there's always at least one thing that distinguishes them. My daughter is lying in her crib, but she won't fall asleep. She keeps staring at me, and there's a confused look on her face. She can tell there's something wrong, something different. She knows who I really am. She's seen me many times. She's the only person who knows, but she can't tell anyone. And by the time she's old enough to speak, she will have forgotten that I'm not actually her mother.